All right, good morning. Good morning. What's going on, everybody? Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Just getting a couple things ready to go. Okay. Looks like we're good to go. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Friday, October 10th, 8 a.m. Pack show. Definitely some news coming from yesterday that I don't think any of us were expecting, but we'll just kind of have to roll with the punches. Obviously, I'm talking about LeBron. We'll go from there. We got a packed show today. Obviously, on a Friday, there's a lot to hit on. We got a lot of stuff coming up this weekend. You got some Lakers basketball, finally some preseason basketball. What's going on with that preseason schedule? I might be the only one complaining about the preseason schedule, but certainly for the Lakers, going a week without playing is not exactly ideal. But we got a lot that we're going to hit on, so I appreciate you guys hanging out for the show. Hope you're enjoying your cup of coffee on this Friday. I'm certainly enjoying my cup of coffee. First cup here. First cup. I think I'm doing a little less coffee. I'm not doing as much coffee in the afternoons. Before I used to crank out a nice little, let me get a quick little 2 p.m. coffee. I'm not doing that as much. The hell's wrong with me? I got to get back into that. Okay, let me give everyone a quick rundown what we're going to do for the show today. I do have a guest today, so we will get a chance to kind of go back and forth. Really looking forward to having the guests on the show as well. But let me just kind of hit on some of the main topics for today. I do want to point out something in yesterday's show. I thought the chat was phenomenal. A lot of kind of good topics came from the chat. It really sometimes it helps with the flow of a show when obviously when we get some topics and thoughts and comments and everything else. So I appreciate everybody doing that yesterday. Certainly helped with the flow. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to become a member, an MVP member, just hit join. You could do that on your phone or you could do that here on your desktop. $3 a month to support the channel. Would greatly appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Okay, quick. Let me give everyone just a quick idea of what we got going on for today, and then we'll get things started. LeBron, obviously, the news came out yesterday, out 3 to 4 weeks. We'll talk about that. Is this going to be an injury that is looming, all season? Is it something that's going to be a problem? I will say that before we even get started, for LeBron to potentially miss 3 to 4 weeks, that's got to be a little bit concerning. I mean, how can it not be? But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the effect of it. And then also how Lakers navigate without LeBron. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to is, all right, well, you don't really technically need LeBron in October and November. You're going to need him down the road. So what players will be asked to step up? What players are going to be depended upon, relied on? So we'll obviously hit on all that in regards to LeBron. My guest today is going to be Anthony Irwin, part of Clutch Points. Looking forward to having him on. So he's going to join the show in about 10 minutes. I'm sure we'll hit on a number of different topics and we'll get his opinion on, obviously LeBron's injury and everything else. NBA survey came out, was it yesterday or today? I think it came out yesterday. It's interesting. Most likely to win MVP, where everyone's going to be in the seeding, team that had the best offseason, best player in the NBA, most likely to win MVP. If you're rebuilding your team right now around a certain team or around a certain player, who would you pick? Got this whole NBA survey. It's obviously all the GMs, and we'll go through it. I will say one thing that stuck out. According to this survey, Lakers are a playing team. They're not the top 5 team or top 7 team in the NBA or something along those lines. According to this survey, they are a playing team. So we'll get into that. We'll look at that survey. I think it will be fun to obviously look at that together. Got a couple stories on the NBA front. We'll do a weekend preview as well. Of course, Major League Baseball games yesterday, the playoffs. One team advances. That's the Dodgers. They beat the Phillies. And then Milwaukee and Chicago will go to a game 5. So a little bit later in the show, I'll hit on that. We kind of do that towards the end. So thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. We'll take a quick look at a couple of the comments here before we get started. Let's get Ocean Breeze, who always chimes in with a good quote. Success isn't permanent. It's rented. And the rent's due every single day. What you achieved yesterday doesn't count today. Keep hustling, keep pushing, or someone else will take your spot. I got nothing to add to that. That's a great quote right there. That's a good one to read every morning. Hector, morning, Sliwa, welcome back. Thank you, buddy. going strong here now, a couple of months, or a couple of weeks. By the way, for those who, obviously took a little bit of time during really, I would call it the dead time of the NBA. But moving forward now, we'll be continuing doing the show Monday through Friday, starting at 8 a.m. And then, of course, I'll be doing post-game shows as well. So feel free to tune in. Our next post-game show coming up on Sunday. All right, let me see if I could get a couple more of these comments before we get started. Let's see. Top 3 seed to play in after adding 3 pieces. NBA media is awesome. That's an interesting one, huh? I mean, I don't know what all the factors are into determining that, but it's pretty drastic right there. It's pretty drastic. Okay, let's get the show started. Obviously, yesterday, news had come out in regards to LeBron. I'm just going to read part of this story on ESPN. Sciatica is what he has, and I'll go through the details of this, and we can go from there. So he hasn't played anything in training camp. We were talking about it earlier in the week. We saw Shams put something out there that basically said, hey, in regards to LeBron in preseason, I wouldn't depend on it. He's probably going to be more ramping up for the regular season. And then the news comes out yesterday that LeBron is going to be sidelined for an additional 3 to 4 weeks because of sciatica on his right side. I'm going to read a couple more things here. Sciatica, for those who don't know, describes the symptoms of irritation, inflammation, or compression of the sciatic nerve, according to ESPN injury analyst Stefania Bell. The nerve originates in the lumbar spine and travels through the gluteal muscles and the hamstrings before branching into other small nerves in the lower leg and foot. Symptoms can range from pain that can be sharp or burning to numbness and tingling or pins and needles. Resolution time varies widely and depends on the source of the problem. So let's just say this, and I think Reddick said something yesterday. LeBron's on his own timeline. There's no question about that. If there's a player in the history of the NBA that has been able to avoid, knock on wood, catastrophic injuries in the NBA, it really has been LeBron. That doesn't mean that LeBron hasn't had seasons where he's played 50 games or 55 games or something like that. But what LeBron hasn't had in his career, he's clearly hasn't had, hey, he's out all of next season. That hasn't happened. It's one of, I think just the greats when you talk about LeBron, the fact that he's been able to be as durable and available as he has. Now with this, being sidelined with this is not something that you hear very often in the NBA. And I think it just kind of leaves a question mark of, I got no idea how long LeBron's going to be out for. Let's just assume it's that 3 to 4 week time frame. Let's take the worst of that time frame and let's just say 4 weeks. Well, if he came back on Friday, October, or on Friday, or I don't know what day it would be, on November 10th, since today is October 10th, that'd be 4 weeks, and he'd miss about 10 regular season games. So that just kind of gives you an idea. And even LeBron, this late in his career, at this stage of his career, how many games is he typically missing? I mean, the last 2 seasons, he played 71 games and 70 games. LeBron's there every single, for the most part, every single game. And it didn't matter that he was in his 21st season or his 22nd season. He's still showing up to work, rolling up his sleeves, and obviously playing as many games as he possibly can. But this is going to keep him out. So I think there's a couple different ways to look at this, to be honest. One way you could look at this is a little bit of panic mode. Oh my gosh, it's LeBron. Where's LeBron? What are Lakers going to do without LeBron? I think that's kind of a natural reaction, and I don't think anybody would be too upset at you if that was your action. I think the other way to look at this is to basically say to yourself, okay, he is clearly not going to be, at least the beginning, when he does come back, he's got something ailing him, something bothering him. But let's just kind of keep in mind here, it's October. So if there's ever a time that you want LeBron to be LeBron, it doesn't need to be October. It doesn't need to be November as well. And I think, the way I would kind of look at this in regards to the Lakers, perspective, he's going to take his time. He's going to do everything he can to come back, but he's not going to rush it. And then the question is going to come back to, well, what happens then in the time that LeBron is out? So while LeBron is out, there's obviously going to have to be other guys that are going to have to step up. It's going to force guys to step up and step up early. I saw Trevor Lane put something out yesterday. I think it was something along the lines, all right, with LeBron out, who should start now? I don't know. I don't have that answer. And that if that could be a discussion if you guys want it to be a discussion. But what I will say is coming into this season, there were certain players that you were looking at that you were saying to yourself, all right, there's got to be a number of players that have to step up this season because LeBron's in his 23rd season in the NBA. You could still depend a lot on LeBron, but you also have to be smart and strategic and everything else. The way I kind of look at this is the same players are going to need to step up if LeBron's out, but it's going to be amplified. Rui Hachimura can't be a player when LeBron's out that you look at and you're like, I didn't even know Rui was playing today. That obviously can't happen. That's not a good strategy for the Lakers. That's not good for the team overall. I'll keep hitting on, I guess, one of the biggest messages the team had for Rui Hachimura during the offseason was they want him to be more aggressive. Well, if you're not aggressive when LeBron's out, I don't really know what to tell you. If there's ever a time for Rui Hachimura to show some of his value and how he can be relied upon, it's going to be in games that LeBron's not there. We already kind of know how important it's going to be for Ayton this season to be a factor and everything else. And I don't need to get into all that because we know it, but I think not having LeBron in the lineup for 10 games, 15 games, 7 games, whatever amount that it ends up being, we just got to remind ourselves he is going into his 23rd season in the NBA. And he's probably going to have more moments like this where this is bothering him or that's bothering him or he's trying to be strategic or he's saying to himself, yeah, I just don't want to put too much into the month of December, whatever the case is, just because of his age. Well, with that in mind, it is going to come down to what are other players doing? How much are they stepping up? How much of an impact are they having? And that's going to be a question that, will get answered as the preseason goes on and then as we get into the regular season. So hopefully, by the way, for some of these preseason games, now that you have a little bit better of an idea that LeBron's not going to be there for a few weeks, hopefully you're also starting to get Luka playing with DeAndre Ayton. You're starting to get Austin Reeves back in that lineup. Marcus Smart, hopefully a part of it as well if he's healthy. So these players can start gaining a little bit of chemistry before the regular season starts. Okay, let me look at a few of the comments here before we get started here. If LeBron is ramping up when he comes back, will he come off the bench? I think when LeBron comes back, he's going to know he's good to go. And once he's good to go, I think he's going to, obviously be back in the starting lineup and do everything he can to contribute. So that piece of it, I don't question. LeBron will come back when he's ready to come back. Let's see. Let me get a couple more of these in here. Let's see. Yeah, some people not very confident because of his injury. Father Time caught up to LeBron. I got to be honest with you. I mean, Father Time should have came 3-4 years ago. So the fact that he's still kind of going through Father Time and putting up some of the numbers that he is, then, I would say that would this be one of the only players that technically beat Father Time? I mean, yes, at some point Father Time will win, but I mean, damn, he's been holding off on that in a while. All right, let's see a couple more here before we have our guest on. 23 years. I think we end up buying him out before the deadline, try to ball out for the next team. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. There's no benefit for the Lakers of doing that. Okay, I want to welcome in our guest. Very appreciative of his time and happy he's available for the show. Want to welcome Anthony Irwin from Clutch Points. Anthony, what's going on, brother? Good morning.
I'm hanging in there, man. How you holding up?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to the weekend. Looking forward to getting some Laker preseason games back. 1 week off. I was joking around with Trevor Lane. I'm like, Trevor, what is this? The All-Star break? I mean, we got play 2 games and then we're done for a week.
It was like an appetizer, and then like the entree is just taking forever to get out there. It was kind of like the off season too, where you had Eurobasket, and you're like, all right, sweet, Luka looks great, let's get going, and you're like, oh crap,
No, we got to
like
wait
a month to go.
Yeah, we got to wait.
Yeah.
Well, if there's any sport, which I'll give the NBA a lot of credit for this. I mean, if there's any sport you cover and you get about 10 months of solid content, I don't know how much I can complain, because I do feel like without even blinking twice, you get pretty much 10 months of content, and you could stretch that if you want, but that's pretty damn good for this sport.
Oh, and shouts to the Clippers too for getting us through September. Like that
Where would
Bomber
we be?
Gate and Kawhi Gate and Tree Gate, like that got us through September, and we were ready to go.
Where would we be without aspiration and Kawhi Leonard? Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Well, let's start with this. Just, we saw the news yesterday, obviously, about LeBron to miss 3 to 4 weeks. If he misses the high end of that, let's just say he's out 4 weeks, about 10 regular season games. I think we all agree, however amount of time LeBron needs off and whenever LeBron is ready, that's on his timetable. And, when you've played this many years in the league, this isn't a Anthony Davis thing, or I'm not trying to take a shot at AD, but like, you think of players that the question is that guy going to be available? Is it not? LeBron's obviously a different story. What goes through your mind immediately from a team perspective, just thinking about, okay, he'll be out, a little bit of a timetable. Maybe you'll get more stretches of this during the season. What are some of the players that come to mind, and just how they juggle this for the time being?
Yeah, I made this point on the show last night that this might be the best team LeBron's ever played for in terms of its ability to kind of weather the storm while he's out. Like he said it on his show with Steve Nash the other day. He was like, yeah, I can kind of take my time here. And I'm heading into year 23. I'm about to be 41 years old. It's just, I can finally kind of listen to my body. I don't feel the need to rush back with Luka. And then, Steve Nash interjected and said, yeah, with Luka, you can definitely do that. It was kind of interesting. I was also thinking about it over the night. This team is almost like built for LeBron absences. They are really deep at that 4 spot. You have Rui, who can step in and has always kind of produced really well in LeBron absences. You have Laravia, who they signed in the offseason. You have obviously Luka guards, primarily 3s and 4s. And you also, if he's ever healthy, you also have Maxi Kleber, who can step in and play 4 in really big lineups too. So I'm really kind of, I wouldn't obviously say I'm looking forward to seeing the Lakers without LeBron, but it's a team that I think can very easily weather the storm, especially given how easy the schedule is early on.
It's a good point, because I if you do look at LeBron's career, and you might say, well, what about him in Miami when he had, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh? Or what about, I don't know, you could look at the roster. Lakers won a championship. But I think the point that you're making more than anything else, LeBron's never been on a team where he's not so incredibly dependent on.
Yeah.
And because Luka is, hopefully walking into the peak of his powers, and because Luka is, just the way it looks in his body and what the offseason was like and everything else, looks like he's going to be a top 2, top 3 player in the NBA. We'll see what happens. I mean, obviously anything can happen, but I get the point, because when you first said it, I was like, well, let me think about this. But I get what you're saying. I get the point. I think the point is incredibly valid. You mentioned Rui there for a quick second. And I think Rui's a kind of I have a love-hate relationship with Rui, because I think there are times where I feel like Rui can do more. There are too many games where I don't feel like his presence is there, but then there are other games where I'm like, damn, Rui's already got 13 points in the first half. He's got a few rebounds, he's shooting well, everything else. Just specifically with LeBron out, what is kind of your mind frame go when I mention Rui?
Yeah, Rui is one of those players who does everything loud. He plays well, really loudly. He plays poorly, really loudly.
Good way to put it. Yeah.
And he Russell Westbrook is kind of this way too, right? Where Russ, when he looks great, he's probably the nth degree example of this. Where when Russ looks great, he's like, oh my God, that's a top 5 point guard I've ever seen. And then when he's not playing so great, he's unemployed. So with Rui, I think it all comes down to engagement. With him, that's why there was some concern. Hey, do you bring him off the bench? Do you start him? Do you start Smart? Do you start Vando? But if you do start either Vando or Smart, do you lose Rui? Is he less engaged coming off of the bench? I thought it was really telling the difference between his and Marcus Smart's answers when asked about starting or coming off of the bench, where Smart was kind of like, whatever you need from me, let's just win. And Rui was like, well, I guess it's up to JJ Redick, and as long as I still get my minutes, that's what it really kind of comes down to, you know. But it's clear he wants to start. He has told people that he wants to start. So, I think with Rui here, it's a real opportunity for him because he is entering a contract year. The Lakers and he never seriously engaged in extension talks, which I thought was also really telling. And I think for him, it's one of those fork in the road moments where, all right, my career can go in this way or it can go in this way. And these first 10 games and then how the rest of the season plays out and his engagement level, whether it's consistent or not, dependent on his role, that's going to go a long way in deciding his future with the Lakers and his future as a serious player moving forward.
It's funny because I noticed that too. You know, I was there for that Rui moment for media day, and that caught me too. You know, that was kind of one of those. I think he even said, well, I've started for the last couple of years, you know, something along those lines.
They made the case. Like,
yeah,
I'm okay with it, but here's reasons X, Y, and Z why I should start.
You know, it's funny. When LeBron is healthy, and I know this is just a conversation because we all do it, and I don't even know if I know why the starting lineup is such a important thing. And it's not even just for the players. I feel like media members, everyone wants who are your starters, right? Like that's like it's a definitely a talking point. I was making the case for Vando. That's the case that I was making. And I thought part of it is because I don't know Marcus Smart's health and where is he. And, you know, I would love to see that we're all sitting here a few weeks from now and saying, damn, Marcus Smart looks like the dude from Boston. And then maybe that conversation isn't there. But I was making the case for Vando and obviously in place of Rui. Now, you had reported it. I want to say earlier in the week that you had mentioned that whatever anybody's thought process is, it's probably going to be Rui.
Yeah.
Do you feel that if you had to just, you know, your own determination, is that the right move? And I'm talking about when everybody's healthy.
Yeah, I don't think so, honestly. I think that it creates roster imbalance. It creates lineup and rotation imbalance. I also, especially given the way that Vando has played early on, I think Vanderbilt has really made a good case for himself to be, I don't know if you're a baseball guy, but kind of like an opener that some teams use where they bring in a guy to face the top of the lineup in the first inning, and then they go to a longer reliever, and then they
see it a lot during the playoffs. It's specific. It's a righty matchup for the first three guys, and then we're going to go to or whatever it is. Yep.
Yeah, and I kind of would view Vando in much of the same way, where you throw him out there for the first stint for the other team's best player. You bother him a little bit, you throw him out of his rhythm, and then you bring in Marcus Smart to be kind of a steadier defender there, and you bring in Rui to when LeBron is healthy, you bring him in there for LeBron, and he does a lot of the same things offensively, at least, and that's kind of the rotation I had. You know, I think would make some sense. I think there's also a good case depending on how healthy Marcus Smart is that I think he should maybe defend. He should start and defend the other team's best perimeter player because we saw the impact on Austin that starting Max Christie had on him last year, where early on in the season, the Lakers were having Austin initiate the offense and guard the other team's best perimeter player. And I thought it was kind of wearing him down. And then they moved D'Lo to the bench and they brought Max in. And I thought you got a better Austin. And I thought that was honestly one of the steps in turning the season around. And then they traded for Dorian Finney-Smith. And I was like, oh, dang, they're getting back to that 2019, 2020 bigger, stronger, faster, you know, type of identity. And obviously the Luka trade happens, and I'm not obviously sad about that either. But yeah, I think that with starting Vando, or I guess with starting Rui, it's an abundance of finishers and not enough security guards, I guess, you know, not enough dogs defensively.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure why they're so stuck on that. And I do feel like they are stuck on it. I think one of the things that I enjoyed about you know, that piece that you had that I mentioned that you were sources were telling you that they think they're going to go with Rui. I think it was the part of whether you like it or not, this is probably what it's going to be. And I think everybody is assuming that that's what it's going to be. And that, listen, and I think the one positive may be this. One of the positives could be it's also up to Rui Hachimura to prove that, listen, and it's not even anything against Rui. It's more just you do want a balance and you do want to have, do I got the proper amount of defensive players? Do I have the proper amount of offensive players? I've heard people say, okay, yeah, you throw Vando in the starting lineup, nobody's going to guard him. I get that. I understand that. And that would be a strategy I would take if I'm on the defensive end as well. The problem is you also have nobody that really is a defensive player that's in that starting lineup. So you just kind of want to balance it out. So we'll see how that eventually works out. You mentioned Luka for a quick. We've mentioned him, but not into detail. Um, what are your expectations for Luka? Because I think every time, I think the process has already started. Of we have a new player that's the head of the Los Angeles Lakers, and this isn't kind of a pipe dream player. This isn't a, hey, I'm not sure if Anthony Davis can be the head of the snake and you can hand the keys over to him. Luka's definitely that player. It's like, I don't know who's driving, but let's pull over because I drive. And as we get into 26 years old, he's got tremendous amount of experience already. I always say this, and I think there is, when people say that, hey, now we're starting to build around Luka and give it some time and everything else. I think it's for Luka mentally, he's kind of already done everything but win a championship. So I don't know how much Luka's in the, let's take a couple of years and figure it out. They might not have a choice. What's kind of your view in Luka in his first full year with the Lakers?
Yeah, I have incredibly high expectations of Luka. He transformed his body. He also talked a lot at media day, and with all the profiles and feature pieces that were written about him. He talked a lot about the work he's done to become a better leader. It's why the beginning of this training camp has been a little frustrating, finding out that he's been in and out of practice and that it's like he's 26, man. He's like we're talking about him playing in Eurobasket as if he ran a marathon over the weekend or over the summer. But I think it's time for him to really, like, I think LeBron won his first championship at 26 or 27. Michael won his first championship at 26 or 27. Obviously, Kobe was on a quicker schedule because he played with Shaq so early in his career. But I do think, though, that we saw like the second prime for Kobe around this important part in his life too. So this is the beginning of the peak of Luka's powers, and that 26 to 32 range is usually where players that you look at the best stretches of their careers. It's starting right now, and I think I think Jokic is the best player in the world. To me, he's the best basketball player that we have going. But if Luka finds a way to be more of a threat off of the ball and steadier defensively, and he brings along everything that he can do for a team offensively with the ball, you might be looking at the best player in the world. I think he's one of the very few guys who have that kind of ceiling for him. And with LeBron out early in the season, and with this team very clearly positioning him as its face and cornerstone and foundation, this is the season for Luka to prove Nico as wrong as he can possibly prove him.
Yeah, it's a good. I like that perspective. I think from a timetable perspective, and I know I don't want to jump too far ahead because we don't know how long LeBron's going to play. For all you and I know, we could be sitting here a year from now and nothing's changed, and LeBron is still a Los Angeles Laker, and he's got another year, and we'll figure it out. But what do you think is kind of the long-term goal for the Lakers with Luka? I mean, if you had to vision that out a little bit, and it's not easy to do, especially when you have somebody as powerful as LeBron. And again, you don't know, ESPN, I'll do this a little bit later, but ESPN put out an article today, I think it was McMenamin, Dave McMenamin. And it was, look, here are all the scenarios that LeBron has. And there was about 4 of them on there. The season hasn't even started, and we're, already, talking about that. But just Luka specifically in the Lakers organization, there will come a time where LeBron's no longer a Laker. What do you think that long-term vision is?
Well, I think the Lakers want us 5, 6, even a decade down the road from now. They want us to look at this as the Luka era. And they want, I think maximizing that era, maximizing this window is at the forefront of their minds. And I thought it was really interesting. So there's kind of there's technically a zillion variables that could have been at play, but I thought it was really telling after Luka played in Eurobasket that you got those reports that the Lakers are now interested in going for it. And I thought Shams threw a bit of a bit of a curveball to everybody with the Giannis reporting recently, and how he, I guess, told the Bucks, and I would imagine that filtered around through the rest of the league that he only wanted to play for the Knicks. And if you're the Lakers, you're like, oh, well, we had the Giannis project in play. All right, I guess we're going for it. That's one version of the story. But the other one that I'm kind of curious about is Luka plays in Eurobasket. He does all of this work on his body over the course of the summer. He does all of this work to mature and become a better leader. And players from that Slovenian team were kind of singing his praises in that regard too. So I kind of wonder if his creative and competitive juices were really flowing coming off of that. And he went to Rob and he was like, we're going for it. Like we can do the, we tried the whole patience thing, but let's try to build us a contender. And unfortunately that happens so late in the offseason that like so many of the moves have already been made. But I think how the Lakers handle this trade deadline is going to be really, really telling. They only have the one first rounder that they can use. Their books are incredibly clean beyond this upcoming season. Are they going to be willing to move that first rounder, make their books a little bit more jumbled moving forward for the sake of competing? Because you think about it, Alan, you got LeBron, I think still very capable, clearly, of playing at a really high level. You don't know how long you're going to have that for. You have Luka technically on a discount because his extension is going to kick in and he's going to get a big pay raise. You have Austin at a real discount because he's going to opt out of his contract after this year and he's going to get a big pay raise to the tune of like 3 times potentially what he's making right now.
Sure.
You have DeAndre Ayton on a discount. Technically, you have Marcus Smart on this. Like you have right now a bit of a perfect storm if things go right for you, where you could really go for it this season. And I think for Luka, coming out hot, bringing that team along with him, being that tide that raises all boats, getting off to a good start and proving to Rob Pelinka, like actually, yes, this is the season to go for it. That to me is how the Luka era, like the first chapter of Luka era, the Luka era is going to be really, really important here.
Yeah, I've mentioned this a couple times, and I do believe it. There's certain players out there. I mentioned this, I think it was earlier in the week. It's, let's say the Lakers, let me just make up a hypothetical. They traded for Victor Wembanyama. And Wemby, who has never been in a playoff game, is probably very content. Not, I'll word this properly. He doesn't want to just make the playoffs, but if he's never made the playoffs, there's a little bit of like, hey, I'm finally in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and then maybe the
first stepping stone. Yeah,
and then maybe the following year, it's like, wow, we got to the Western Conference Finals. I'm moving towards the direction I want. Wow, I got to the NBA Finals. Now the only thing I got left is winning it all. The problem, which is I think an advantage for the Lakers, is the superstar you traded for. He's done everything already.
Yeah,
and he's 26. So there is no, I was content with getting home court advantage in the first round and being eliminated in 5 games. There's nothing that, and by the way, that also matches with the Lakers. The Lakers are also not a franchise that would be okay with, well, you got eliminated in the second round. I think what you said about pushing all your chips to the center of the table, and I don't know what that means exactly. Does that mean, well, the first rounder is gone, and does it mean Austin Reeves is gone because they found a player that they felt like we got to go get right now? But I do think that timetable, anytime I saw the patience thing, I'm like, I don't know if I fully agree with that. and I'm not even talking about it from a Laker perspective. I'm talking about from a Luka perspective. Luka's the one, like, guys, have you seen me play over the last few years? I've done everything but win a championship. That's the only thing left on my resume. Okay, maybe you could say MVP and things along those lines, but that sounds like that's what his goal would be.
Well, the MVP is, I think that's a huge factor here. Because Luka, I think, is on the trajectory of being, in almost any other organization, a Mount Rushmore player, right? If he would have remained in Dallas, he would have been the best player that ever played for the Dallas Mavericks, and maybe had the best career of anybody who ever played for the Dallas Mavericks. If he would have been traded to the Sacramento Kings, he would immediately have become the best player who ever went there. He just happened to be traded to the Lakers, where that list is a little longer. There's a little bit more competition to get your face carved on Mount Rushmore. But you gotta, if you're gonna be at the trajectory that Luka's on, MVP is one of those really important check marks and boxes that have to be checked over the course of a career. And I think he's really lined up well to do it this season. He's still going to be the engine of this offense. He has a really good finishing mate in DeAndre Ayton. He has a really good secondary creator in Austin. And then, oh, by the way, you have LeBron, who, like we talked about earlier, I wouldn't call him a luxury. He's still going to be a really important piece to what this team can do. But I thought it was really interesting. I reported heading into Media Day that what I'd heard over the course of the summer was that LeBron was really focusing on off of the catch stuff, whether it's catching and shooting or catching and attacking that closeout, making those quicker decisions, because he's always been able to play chess whenever he has the ball, right? And he said it at Media Day. He was like, yeah, I'm really worked on being a better catch and shoot player. So even he is leaning into the idea that this is Luka's team. This is Luka's MVP to win. And I think LeBron also clearly knows what it takes to win MVPs. So I think winning MVP, factoring into the championship, picture right now, where I think the Lakers are a little on the outside looking in, but really going for it this year, making real progress, I think is going to be, crucial for setting the tone for how Luka's, how that book is going to be written in comparison to all the other great players who play for the Lakers.
Okay, so I know that I don't know how much you got a chance to look at it, but it's always kind of fun to see it. The NBA survey. I don't know how much you've got it. The NBA GM survey. I'm gonna share my screen with you here real quick, and we can look at this together, and then everyone can get mad together. I want to get your opinion on this. So for those who don't know, NBA GM survey comes out, obviously before the season starts. Let me just kind of show you the Western Conference, and you could give me your thoughts here. Western Conference ranking, there's, from all the GM votes, the survey, 87% of the votes have the Oklahoma City Thunder with the number 1 seed. The highest odds for the number 2 seed is Denver at 53%. The highest odds for the number 3 seed is Houston at 30%. The number 4 seed you could look at would be Minnesota at 23. I'm going to keep going down here. The Lakers are 7%, or at least the highest odds for the number 7 seed are the Lakers. So basically what the GM survey is saying, and I know this isn't Bible, and I know this is obviously just all part of discussion and conversation. What do you make of this? Because, I don't want to, I do think there are a lot of variables that come with this Lakers season. I don't think how Ayton's going to do. I don't know. I'm not sure. I got high expectations. I know he's a a very low risk, high reward player. Marcus Smart, I feel the same way. How healthy is LeBron going to be? There's a lot of question marks with the Lakers. I'm not arguing that. But they won 50 games last year. They did end up the number 3 seed in a season where they had 24 different starting lineups. Obviously, the trades that went down. You see this GM survey. What do you make of where they have the Lakers in the standings?
Well, I don't want to sound too petty or too salty or anything like that, but anytime other GMs talk about whatever Rob Pelinka does, it's worth mentioning that he's not the most popular among his colleagues and his peers, right? That's why whenever Executive of the Year comes up, because that's an award that gets voted on by GMs and by executives and stuff. That, Rob doesn't normally, in seasons, a season last year where he literally acquired Luka Doncic, a trade that everybody considered one of the most lopsided of all time, right? And he still doesn't really get the credit for it. That, Nico gets the blame for it. So whenever other GMs talk about a Rob Pelinka team, I think it's worth mentioning, they don't like that guy very much. What I will say, though, is that the Lakers are, I think, the team with the biggest gap between ceiling and floor, where if things go really well for them, Ayton resuscitates his career, Marcus Smart gets back to defensive player of the year type level. The work that Luka did in the offseason to get into better shape, results in even a more productive Luka Doncic. LeBron, with a little bit of extra rest and a little bit less on his plate, maybe he becomes a little bit better of a defender. Austin fits in as this, oscillating presence between first, second, and third option, and figures out how to do all of those things. The best version of the Lakers, I would put on par with just about any other team in terms of like regular season adequacy. Just about any other team outside of OKC. OKC like lapped everybody last season, so they belong. They 87% was honestly low.
They're in their own category. And by the way, to win a championship, favorites, they're in their own category.
Yeah, I actually have Denver as my championship favorite this year. Denver, if you give Jokic the roster that he has this year against OKC last year, they win that series. But that's why I would have Denver second. And then after that, you want to make a case for Minnesota. I think Minnesota got worse this last offseason, losing Nickeil Alexander-Walker and not really doing a ton to replace him. I think is going to be interesting to see how that goes. Anthony Edwards could ascend another level, and now we're having a very different conversation about him and the Wolves. But the Rockets, I get, because Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, but losing Fred VanVleet's really going to matter. And I'm really curious to see who kind of initiates the offense, who thinks like a point guard on that team. And then the Clippers, come on, we're doing that again. We're watching that movie again. Like every year they have the best offseason of all time. And every year it's like, man, what went wrong with the Clippers? It's like they trust Kawhi. And then the Warriors are really interesting. They did a lot. Like they made a lot of moves that in like vacuum sealed bags are good moves. But when you look at them collectively, they're really, really small. So I'm really curious how asking every single person on that roster to basically play up a position is going to impact them physically and be able to withstand the wear and tear of the season. So I think the Lakers belong in that second tier after OKC and Denver. And if you want to say, you only got one vote and all that stuff, and there's a lot of movement depending on who gets which ranking here and there, fine. But I think the Lakers should be penciled into that 3-4 seed again this year.
Yeah, I think, some of the teams that you mentioned, I do agree. I mean, give Minnesota credit for making the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. I've never been sold on them. And that's also a team that just took the Lakers out in 5. So I'm not even making a comparison to the Lakers. I don't know what is their next step? They didn't do anything. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. I do think the Clippers and the Warriors are wildly, wildly old, especially the Clippers. I think on paper, the Clippers, you're like, wow, look at all these players. That doesn't really mean anything once the season starts. We'll see what happens. Obviously, they got to deal with their own history. I just, I got to be honest, I was surprised how far Lakers were on that list because of the fact, if you told me they didn't win 50 games last year and they didn't do it with a incomplete roster and Luka was, way too much and wasn't his best version and JJ Redick, rookie head coach, I think we'd have a different conversation, but they just got the number 3 pick. So that's what kind of throws me off. And I do feel like the players that they got were very strategic to, improving some of the holes that they had. I'm not telling you they're going to go win a championship, but I have a difficult time seeing how they would be worse than last season. But obviously a lot of people a lot of GMs did not agree with, our take there. So that was interesting to see that.
Well,
Final,
like the Clippers could literally lose Kawhi in the middle of the season. Like, depending on how this investigation goes, they could nullify his contract in the middle of the season, and they're going to have that investigation hanging over their heads the whole year. And by the way, that doesn't take into account Harden getting a year older. Like, the Clippers have quite literally the oldest roster in the history of the sport.
Mm.
And we've seen, remember that Melo season that the Lakers had,
yeah.
where like they spent half the year saying like, well, just wait till Trevor Ariza comes back. I'm like, you're waiting for a Trevor Ariza who's about to retire. That's a red flag for how this season is going to go. And for the Clippers, it's like they have a couple young or youngish, athletic-ish guys on their team, but it makes me nervous how reliant they're going to be on so many old guys. And again, the guy who is the cornerstone of everything that they're trying to do, the guy who is their superstar, the face of their franchise, all of that stuff, he is literally being investigated for essentially NBA fraud. So, and like that at a time while they have one of the greatest NBA fraudsters ever in James Harden on their roster. It's like, I don't know. I don't get why we do this every single year with the Clippers, where everybody marvels at their depth, but it just winds up coming up empty at the end of the season.
Well, let me ask you this. We'll stay on that Kawhi thing here for a quick second. Do you think anything happens? Because I feel like the vibe that I'm getting and recently listening to Pablo Torre, he was on with Mark Stein. It feels like probably nothing will happen. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but it's almost, I wonder if it's one of those where the NBA is like, yeah, it's a bad look for us. Let's just pretend nothing happened.
Well, one of the things that I have paid pretty close attention to over the last few years is under Adam Silver, the NBA's investigations tend to find the easiest path forward. And, it's going to be interesting with this one where other owners are really angry. Other owners and they were already iffy about Steve Ballmer. So like it's going to be a quality versus quantity type of fight, I think, for Adam Silver, where you have the richest man in sports, basically at the center of this thing. The other owners were nervous about him doing something like this in the first place. And then he confirms those concerns with how he's acted, not just this time, but he was literally found guilty. He was fined for doing this with DeAndre Jordan when he first took over. So, and after getting that slap on the wrist, all of the investigation to this point has been about what's taken place recently with Kawhi. I think they should probably go back and revisit what happened in 2019 when Kawhi signed in the first place. If he was willing to do shady stuff before, he clearly seems to have done some shady stuff after. You're telling me he was a saint in between? That doesn't make very much sense. So, like for the league, it's a matter of not just do they have to punish Steve Ballmer in a way that makes it so he doesn't want to do this ever again, but they also have to punish him in a way where nobody wants
to do a message.
Like yeah, nobody wants to do anything like this ever again, because if it is just a slap on the wrist because I've heard the same stuff that Pablo has. This kind of reluctant understanding that this probably is it. People are probably going to be kind of tweaked by the findings or the lack thereof of this investigation. And I think if that is how this goes, you just welcome the Wild West to how everybody is going to handle the salary cap moving forward.
All right, final one I got for you, and I appreciate the time, Anthony. I know big storyline before the summer started, and now before the regular season starts has been Giannis. What do you make of all the noise around Giannis? I've always said this, and I do believe this. You just reading some of the quotes that Giannis has said over not even just the last couple of months, last couple of years. It feels like if there's a star that leaves its team, it's going to be Giannis. What do you make of, or I don't even know if prediction's the right way to put it, but what do you think happens with Giannis over the course of the next 12 months? And do you think he's still a Milwaukee Buck down the road?
I was really surprised over the last couple of days how little movement and little motion the whole Giannis to the Knicks thing got. Alan, that is the Lakers' number one nightmare. And every, frankly, organization's number one nightmare, where you have a bona fide superstar saying, yeah, all right, if you trade me, I want to go here and only here. And the Knicks not having the assets to be able to make that happen. Like, it's crazy to me that that was not a bigger story in national circles, that the Knicks basically trading for Mikal Bridges, you can make an argument, cost them Giannis. And for the Lakers, when they say, or when Lakers fans, and I count myself among people who have shown some of these frustrations, but over the years, the frustration with the notion of, well, we got to stay flexible, we got to stay pliable, we got to stay, light on our feet, just in case this kind of a thing happens. This is the exact example of what the Lakers have been warning people about, where it's like, yeah, we want to have our books clean for the summer of 26. We want to have draft picks at our disposal for the summer of 26 and moving forward, just in case the next superstar does try to force his way to our team. We are ready to make that type of a move. And the fact that the Knicks weren't ready and weren't able to pull that off, that now opens up the gates for every other team out there to, and like Shams kind of made this point too, where every other team after the Knicks weren't able to make good on that opportunity, every other team now is going to be looking at this waiting for Giannis to expand his list. Because if the point of being of asking for a trade and getting out of Milwaukee is to give yourself a better opportunity at winning a championship, you don't have one team in mind as far as a destination, and that team isn't the New York Knicks, right? Like if the point is, I want to be traded here and I want a better shot at winning a championship, if that's his top priority, then I would argue the Lakers are a better spot for Giannis moving forward because they got Luka. I would argue Denver is a better spot for Giannis because they have Jokic.
San Antonio.
I was just going to say San Antonio, they have the flexibility and the assets to pull off that trade with, and he could play with Wemby for the rest of his career.
You could say the Thunder with all the assets they have. I mean, if you're right about, hey, if the goal is, I want to stack some championships here,
yeah,
there are definitely some teams out there that can make a case and have the assets for it. It's interesting that this is all, it doesn't happen too often where you have a star this big going into the regular season. This is the chat. This is the momentum. Hey, they were talking with the Knicks, all that stuff. So, obviously it's going to be a fascinating thing where I think we thought in the summer it would be louder noise, but the Giannis thing kind of had a little bit of steam and then it went away. So, well, Anthony, I appreciate you coming on, brother. I'd love to do this again down the road, but thank you for taking the time to join the show. Looking forward to the season actually starting, the regular season starting, and I appreciate all your insight.
No, thanks for having me, man. We got to get you in the lounge sometime soon too. Let's do that as soon as we can.
Okay, that sounds good, buddy. Thank you for coming on. All right, that is Anthony Irwin right there. All right, good stuff. Good stuff from Anthony. That's I've never had him on the show before, but really enjoyed that conversation. He definitely knows his stuff, and not surprised there. And hope you guys enjoyed that chat too. Okay, let me look at a couple of comments here. We got a couple housekeeping things that we got to get done here, but went a little bit longer than I thought we would go, but the conversation was solid there. Let me look at a couple comments. Take a look. I start a couple here. Let's go to MG. Thank you, brother, for the super. I appreciate you very much. Is Luka and AR in Luka and AR we trust? Calling it now. Luka and AR combining for 60 points per game as a duo. JV, MS. So Jared Vanderbilt, Marcus Smart, defense crucial to keep them fresh offensively. I don't think you need 60 out of them. I think 55 is realistic. I think somewhere around there. No, 55, that's a lot. No, I think maybe 52-ish, 50 to 52, something like that. Something along those lines. You got to understand too, part of the numbers for Luka will just naturally, he's not going to be putting up 35 a night because Austin Reeves is there, LeBron is there, Ayton's going to get his. You got other players on offense that I think are going to get theirs. But I do understand I love the optimism because I think a lot of people, to be honest with you, I don't think share that optimism when it comes specifically to Luka and AR. Let me get at least together. I like Marcus, but he's old. I think 8 minutes a night. Well, they're going to need a lot more from Marcus Smart, I'll tell you that. Let's get another one in here. Rui's reaction to come off the bench is all you need to know about Rui. Get rid of him. Yeah, he didn't sound all that excited about it. That's not a player that sounded all that excited about coming off the bench, or how we say, he'll do anything for the team. He kind of was like, yeah, I'd like to get my minutes. However you want to look at it, probably not the best look for him. I thought when talking about the starting lineup. Let's get this. Would you take Dyson Daniels over AR for the Lakers? Dyson Daniels, I don't think is going to get traded. His name has come up a couple different times. I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Lakers. Perfect fit. I think on the year he was 14-6, somewhere around there. Also averaged over 4 assists. I think he's not a great 3-point shooter, but he's literally one of the best defensive players in the entire NBA. So if you're telling me from a fit perspective, Dyson Daniels is a phenomenal fit. He would be a phenomenal fit really on any team, but the Lakers, certainly he'd be a great fit. Dyson Daniels is not going anywhere. He's in Atlanta, and he's going to be, obviously doing whatever he needs to do there, and I don't think he's going anywhere. All right, let me get a couple more of these in here. Here's a couple other people that are fans of Dyson. The guy's he's phenomenal. He's just a tremendous asset for the Atlanta Hawks. Why would they trade him? He's not going anywhere. A lot of teams need a player like that. Okay, there are a couple of things I didn't get into. I want to share my screen again. And I want to go, let me go back to this NBA GM survey real quick, and then I'll keep going. So here were the predictions. Which team will win the 2026 NBA Finals? The Oklahoma City Thunder. The GMs, 80% think it's going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Last year, 83% went to the Boston Celtics. They predict Cleveland will be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, then New York, then Orlando. Look at Orlando top 3. Atlanta top 4. They got Milwaukee down here as at the number 6 spot. I already mentioned this about the Lakers. So OKC, Denver, Houston, Minnesota, Golden State, Clippers, and the Lakers. Yeah, I'm with Anthony on this one. It's kind of a little interesting how quickly the Lakers just are kind of falling off a cliff in this regard. I got a difficult time fully understanding that. Who will win the MVP? Look who's number 2 on that list. Luka's number 2 on that list. Jokic, 67%. Luka, 10%. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 8%. By the way, you want to start seeing Wemby's name everywhere? If you're starting a franchise today, Victor Wembanyama, 83%. Everybody, all the GMs are saying, I'll take Wembanyama. Most likely to have a breakout season, Amen Thompson of the Houston Rockets. Just to get another Laker one in here, who's the best small forward in the NBA? They got Luka. Taking 40% of that list right there. And then it goes into a couple things, off-season moves. One player acquisition was Kevin Durant. So it just goes into a number of different things. If you guys haven't seen the NBA survey, it's an annual thing that they put out. And this is all the general managers that are voting on that. All right, let me look at a couple comments. Got NBA news as well that I'm going to get into as well. Shout out here, SD Lakes, gifting out 5 Hoops Talk memberships. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate you doing that. If you want to be a member, very simple to join. It's $3 a month, and SD Lakes, I appreciate you doing that. It's very, very nice of you to do that. Anybody that's thrown into Super today or subscribed today, I greatly appreciate you guys doing that as well. Means a lot, and it's great for the channel, so I appreciate everybody doing that. SD Lakes, shout out to you. Okay, I got a couple things on the NBA front, NBA news that I'll throw out there. And then I got the weekend preview and then we're going to call it a week. Solid week. No Laker games, but a couple really good guests, and obviously you guys doing what you do and being a part of the show and the chat and everything else, so I appreciate that. Eric Spoelstra. To succeed Steve Kerr as Team USA head coach, not a real big surprise, to be honest with you. He's going to be the next head coach for the men's national team. Spoelstra succeeds Steve Kerr for the 2027 World Cup and the 2028 Summer Olympics after serving as a lead assistant since 2024, since the gold medal squad. So something to keep in mind here. Eric Spoelstra is going to be taking over on Steve Kerr's behalf and will be representing him. Again, not a surprise. Most people think Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA, so he'll be taking over in regards to that. By the way, before the show ends, I'll take a look at some of your comments. This one, random story from yesterday. Former NBA star Paul Pierce arrested on suspicion of DUI. Former NBA All-Star or player was arrested Tuesday night on suspicion of driving under the influence on a Los Angeles highway after he was found asleep behind the wheel. So, yep, not great for Paul Pierce there, but I did see that. He does a couple things. I know he's doing some stuff with Fox Sports. Oh, no, actually, I think that show was part of the show that was canceled. But I always see him on doing some stuff with Kevin Garnett. I'm not sure if he's still doing that. One other thing that I'll point out from the NBA front that I want to throw in there, Jalen Brunson, as we all kind of sit here and we talk specifically about Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Milwaukee Bucks, what's going to eventually happen. I did see a story this morning. Jalen Brunson was untouchable in Knicks-Bucks talks about potential Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. So if there is a trade to be made, Jalen Brunson will not be a part of it, which does open the door. It's like, okay, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns, obviously a lot of other really good players would be involved in that type of a trade. All right, I want to do the weekend recap here, or the weekend preview here real quick. So let's do that. Steve is saying here he has a podcast he's talking about, talking specifically about Paul Pierce. Here's what we got going on for the weekend, and then I'll kind of tie into what we saw yesterday around sports as well. This is the weekend preview that we got coming up. Of course, it's all presented by Brad Wallace, the Wallace Firm, Injury Attorneys, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. So shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace team. Okay, a couple things as far as a preview, and let me look back real quick on a couple games yesterday. So yesterday, two playoff games in Major League Baseball. I'll first start with the Cubbies. Cubs force a Game 5. So Milwaukee takes the first two in Milwaukee. Chicago takes the next two in Chicago. Brewers get shut out 6-0. And we got a Game 5 coming up. Winner take all. There are two rounds, or there are two, I guess you can call it rounds. Two of the rounds so far, or at least the Dodgers and Tampa, or Dodgers and Toronto, they're done with their series. And then there's still four teams fighting for the final two spots. The earlier game yesterday was the Dodgers and the Phillies. Dodgers win 2-1. The final score there, just a pitching matchup, a pitching gem. And what a really, really random, awkward way of ending a series. Orion Kirking's error in the 11th inning with the bases loaded. I have no idea what he was doing. Andy Paz obviously Andy Paz batting with the bases loaded and hits the ball, broken bat. Not 100% sure. Is it, I think a lot of people were looking, hey, was this off him, or is it in fair territory? The pitcher, for kind of a young pitcher here, a reliever for the Philadelphia Phillies, complete panic mode, a slow roller off the bat, doesn't know what to do. The bases are loaded. Their season is on the line. All he's got to do is throw the ball to first. Tries going to Real Muto at home plate, JT Real Muto, and I don't know what the hell he's doing. Throws it nowhere close to Real Muto, but even if the throw was great, it makes no sense that he's going to home plate. And the Dodgers are get to the NLCS because of that error made by a bullpen reliever for the Philadelphia Phillies. It's random. If you're a Dodger fan, you don't care how you get there, you move on. For the Phillies, you had 2 games that you could have won, and you needed one of them to go your way. Both of them went the Dodgers' way, and I'm talking about game 2 in Philadelphia. Dodgers had a 4-0 lead. Now it's 4-3. You got the wheel play, one of the plays, the wheel play that the Dodgers obviously get a big out at third. Then you got the final play where Tommy Edman fields kind of a slow roller. You got a fast runner getting the first on that play, and Freddie Freeman picking it. The Dodgers got the breaks, and the Dodgers don't need any breaks. That's how good they are. But if you're Philadelphia, or if you're anybody going up against the Dodgers, you got to get a couple breaks to go your way. They didn't. They were not clutch. And the Dodgers find themselves now in the NLCS, which is no surprise at all. I mean, I think the only story, in my opinion, in baseball is if the Dodgers don't win it all. Clearly, the most talent, the best pitching staff, players that can take over a game at any time with their bat. And they get to the NLCS. But just how that series went, I felt like this series should have gone 5. But like I said, the 2 key games where they can go one way or the other both went to the Dodgers. It's over in 4. So Dodgers are now waiting for the Cubs and the Brewers. I will just give you guys the schedule real quick for this weekend, just to give everyone an idea. So tonight, Tigers and the Mariners, game 5, phenomenal there. And then tomorrow, Cubs and the Brewers, game 5. So you're going to get 2 phenomenal games. And then Sunday, the ALCS will start, and Monday, the NLCS will start. So it gives you a little bit of an idea from that perspective. NFL games, there was a Thursday night game yesterday. The Giants, 34-17. Eagles have now lost 2 in a row. Giants blow out the Philadelphia Eagles. Not a good day for Philly yesterday. Couple games at least I would keep an eye on over the weekend in the NFL. Hopefully a couple of good games. Let me see here as I'm looking at this. Seahawks, Jags, 3-2 versus 4-1. Rams, Ravens should have been a good game, but Ravens suck. They're 1-4. Obviously, we know their injuries. 49ers in Tampa, 4-1 versus 4-1. Lions, Chiefs, that's a Sunday night game. That should be a good one as well. 4-1 versus 2-3. I know the Chiefs are 2-3, but they're still the Chiefs. That's all we got from a weekend preview perspective. Obviously, I hit on a lot of stuff there, but a really good sports weekend, and certainly a lot going on in the world of sports. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again: best time of the year in sports. You just cannot beat this time of the year in sports. Okay, let me get a couple more in here, and then we're going to call it a day. All right, take shots. That's okay. That's okay. Let me see what we got here. I believe Smart has a lot left in the tank. Okay, talking about Marcus Smart. I hope so. I really, really do. I really, really do hope that that happens, and we'll see what eventually happens. Okay, let's get another one. Slee, if you're the Lakers coach, how do you fix Dalton Connect? You play him differently, or he's a lost cause? I think you give him some opportunities early. See if in the beginning of the season that some of these comments. I think you give him some opportunities early and see if you can catch lightning in a bottle, and see if early on you could try to find a way to see if that confidence can grow early on. Find ways. Doesn't matter. 5-6 minutes in a first half or 5-6 minutes in the second half. Maybe he hits a couple of buckets. He hits a couple of shots. The only way I think he gets through this and he gives himself, an opportunity to be somewhat of an asset for the Lakers is if he gets opportunities and has some success. If he doesn't, then I don't know if he's going to be able to gain it at some point down the road. Dyson Daniels, perfect next to Luka. Okay, there's a couple other comments from that perspective. Slee, would you ever pick or use a fan question as me if it's a good question, right? Like, obviously you got to be smart, strategic, and everything else. But if it was like, hey, that's a really good question, and yeah, I'd like that answer, then yeah, I would. And by the way, it doesn't have to be during media day. I can ask it before a Lakers game if I'm at a game with JJ Redick or something along those lines as well. Okay, my people. I think we're done for the day. I think we're done for the week. $1.10 today. Thank you for being a part of the show. I'm looking forward to Sunday. Lakers got another game coming up, so that's going to be fun, and we'll get a chance to react to it. Maybe we get a little bit of a Luka on Sunday, so we'll see what happens. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Hope you guys have a great Friday, a good weekend. I'll see you guys on Sunday night. Thank you for Anthony Irwin for joining the show, and we'll see you after the game on Sunday.